Welcome to your special Saturday episode. You're probably wondering why I'm publishing a podcast episode on a Saturday because normally I publish my episodes every Tuesday. But next week, I'm going to be wrapping up season one of Lessons from the Boot, the podcast. And so I decided to squeeze in an extra episode today so that I can finish with my finale episode on Tuesday to wrap up the first season. And today we're talking about authenticity and asking the question, can you be too authentic? Now, as always, this is something that I am thinking about in this particular period of my life. If you don't already know, I have a YouTube channel, Ms. Brittany. And on that channel, I talk about both the beauty and the reality of life here in South Italy. And I'm really, I believe, authentic on that channel when it comes to describing what everyday life is really like here. I don't sugarcoat things. I don't paint the traditional romantic, rosy picture of what life is like in Italy. I just tell it to you how it is. And on the most part, people really appreciate that because honestly, if you type in Italy into YouTube, there are a lot of videos that will paint the picturesque and dreamy version of this country that we have all grown up to believe is real life. However, there are some people that are triggered by my authenticity. And those kinds of people believe that, I'm just being overly negative or that, perhaps Italy isn't the right country for me, rather than accepting that actually every country can have its flaws. But the reason I'm kind of thinking about this authenticity kind of subject a bit more in this period is because I've also had some people comment on the videos that I have done about what nobody tells you about Palermo. And people have commented, like, thank you so much for the advice. I'm going to give this city a miss. And I've just been a bit like, oh, that kind of really wasn't what I intended with my video content. Like, okay, I tell it to you how it is here, but I tell it to you how it is so that you can come and visit this country with your eyes wide open and not come here under any illusions to only then later on complain about the city to your friends, family, social group, on social media, in expat groups, whatever situation you're in, but to actually come here prepared. What is that expression? Forewarned is forearmed, right? But not to tell you not to come here at all. Now, I'm going to be talking about this in a video next week on my YouTube channel. So if you're not yet subscribed to my channel, the link is below in the show notes. Go ahead, give me a subscribe so that you can follow along with all of my content. It's always really appreciated. And stay tuned for that video next week where I'm going to be talking a bit more about this. But essentially, it really got me thinking about authenticity because we are always taught that we should be real to ourselves, we should be real to how we're feeling, to our situation. But why is it then when people are, it triggers so many others? And it makes people take extreme decisions that they decide to boycott a city rather than visit it because they understand it's not a perfect place. It's so interesting. And I did have a kind of moment where I was like, oh my goodness, should I just talk about the amazing aspects of South Italy? Because, my channel is not a tourism channel. Like, I'm not here to say, come to Italy and, promote Italy in this way. I'm just here talking about everyday life in South Italy. And so, I kind of don't want to just talk about all the amazing things, but I want to talk about the reality because this is real life. Every city, every town around the world has both its good and its bad points. But it did make me feel a little bit guilty in that moment because in no way, shape, or form do I want to stop people or deter people from visiting Palermo. But I do think if you understand this city and you really understand it on a much deeper level, I think you appreciate it so much more. And I think, if somebody is telling you there's going to be rubbish on the streets, watch your stuff because of pickpockets. I mean, this is common sense advice for any major city around the world. Don't hire this particular car because it's, a common choice for car thieves. If I'm giving you this advice, it's not because I'm saying don't come. I'm telling you so that you can be better prepared and that you can have a better experience. Because honestly, like, Palermo sometimes is given the same bad rap as almost Naples is. Naples has a really, really bad rap, and people often post in expat groups and on social media, like, is it safe to visit Naples? I mean, people have done lots of videos about this on YouTube as well, myself included. And the reality is, any city is safe. It depends really on you and the way that you carry yourself. Because a lot, not all, of course, this is a very generalized thing, but a lot of crime occurs because people are careless with their belongings, because they don't pay attention to where they're going or their surroundings. They don't pre plan or research their trip beforehand. These things can really help to make people become more vulnerable and potential victims of crime. Of course, there were always going to be random attacks, things that, not even the most seasoned traveler could have prepared for. But essentially, it normally falls into one of those three categories. And I say this as a former police officer as well. I kind of know what I'm talking about when it comes to like personal safety and security. But I do know that it's really interesting how people respond. And, it's almost like, okay, that's a not a perfect city, I'm not going. But I think you just have to remember in life that, no place in the world is perfect. And actually, if you truly understand a place, you really do feel its heart and soul. And you kind of have a much deeper experience with that city and that country than if you had just kind of visited here on a superficial level. And so I've been in this quandary for, the past couple of weeks. But essentially, I think I've come to the conclusion that you can never be too authentic. And essentially, you should never base your authenticity on what you think the reactions of other people are going to be. Because as we all know, we cannot control how other people respond to situations. You could have, and I've had this as well, you could have a video that only ever talks about the positive aspects, and there is still somebody who is triggered by what you've had to say. Like, I think my content on my channel is pretty vanilla. I never really talk about anything too controversial. I literally just talk about the things that I think people can benefit from understanding and learning about. But yet people still have negative things to talk about based on my content. And so I kind of feel that, you understand that you cannot control other people's reactions. And so you shouldn't hold back your authenticity because of how people might respond to it. There is, for every 10 people that are triggered by what you have to say, there is going to be like 3 or 4 people that you've absolutely changed their experience by being who you are and talking about what you're talking about. And that's what I hold on to, because I understand that those people who follow my channel, watch my videos, and watch my content appreciate this perspective that I give of life here in South Italy. They perhaps understand that, things are not perfect here, and they want a bit more information as to what life is really like, And I kind of think the next time that you watch a video about a place that you want to visit on holiday or something that you want to do, and people are giving you their authentic perspective on it, if it's not entirely positive, I don't think it necessarily means you should boycott that experience or that trip or whatever it may be. I just think it means you have to sit with yourself a bit and be like, am I okay with a place not being 100% perfect? Is it still something I really want to explore? Could I learn something from this experience by visiting somewhere that isn't this polished, pristine version of itself? And I think if you sit with yourself enough and you are that kind of person who actually really enjoys getting to know a real place rather than just staying in a tourist bubble, I think that kind of authenticity can really help you. And so, as much as I've been thinking a lot about this week, I do think I have reached the conclusion that I don't think you can be too authentic. I think the fact is, you have to be true to yourself. And if you want to talk about a particular aspect or share some information about, I don't know, the city or country you're living in, you shouldn't feel like you can't because it's going to trigger people. I feel like as long as it is done in a respectful way and you are not being authentic just to deter people or just to make people think badly about a situation, if you are being authentic about, for example, Italy, because you want to educate people, because you want people to come here and have a great time rather than complain and moan about it later, which, I have seen so many times before. People come here and then they list off all of these complaints, either because they've moved here with unrealistic expectations or they visited here based on what they think it's going to be like from the films that they've watched. and they realize that life isn't actually like this. And then they kind of feel really kind of bitter about that and then complain about it and moan about it. But you see, if they had actually really gotten to know the country a little bit beforehand and decided to understand a bit more about real life, they probably would have had a better experience. They would have seen the negative aspects, but it wouldn't have impacted them to the point that they leave vowing never to return, you know? And it's this. So I think, in summary, I don't think you can be too authentic. I think it's really important to be authentic in every aspect of your life. Be authentic in the work that you do, be authentic in your opinions and your mindsets and your beliefs, and be authentic with what you believe as well. We are not meant to be blind sheep. We are not meant to repeat what everybody else says around us. We all have our own minds, our own thoughts, processes, and opinions. We all have our own backgrounds and influences that have led us to be the people that we are today. We are not carbon copies of one another. And so I think, we have to remember that each and every one of us is authentic in our own way. And I think it is through listening to that authenticity that we can really learn something as a result. I'll see you in the next episode.